In today's video, I will tell you everything you need to know about how to apply for parents' immigration visa or parents' migration visa for Australia. So there are a lot of different types of migration visas for your parents, and today I'm going to discuss each and individual different types of visas which are available to apply for your parents for Australia. So let's go into detail about those visas. Okay, so I'm on to the website, the official website emi.homeaffairs.gov.au, and on this website I go on to this option about parents visas, and if I go a little bit down, let's read this information. Australia offers a range of visa options for parents of settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent residents and eligible New Zealand citizens to reunite with their children in Australia. This includes both temporary and permanent visa options. A limited number of permanent parents visa places are available each migration program year. Once we reach this number, we do not grant any more visas that program year. So demand for these visas is greater than the places available each year. As a result, processing time for parents visa application can be lengthy. So this is one of the visa, aged parents visa subclass 804. This permanent visa lets an aged parent of settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident or eligible New Zealand citizen stay in Australia. For more information, we need to click on this link. So let's click on this link. Aged parents visa. This permanent visa lets an aged parents of settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident or eligible New Zealand citizen stay in Australia. So they can stay permanently. Cost is $4,990 Australian dollar. Processing time. For an indication of processing time for this visa, use the visa processing time guide tools. This will show the processing time for recently decided applications. It is a guide only and not specific to your application. For more information, see parents visa queue. So let's click on this link and see what does it say. Okay, variations in processing time. We assess applications on case-by-case basis. Processing time can vary for a range of reasons, including whether you have submitted an application with all necessary supporting documents. Use the checklist at IMI account to make sure you attached all required documents. So you need to go to IMI account and register yourself into this account and set up a login ID and password, and then when you use this IMI account app, you will be able to see the progress of your application for parents visa. Whether you have lodged an online or paper application, applying online help streamline processing. How quickly you respond to requests for more information, how long it takes us to perform the required checks, how long it takes to receive information from external agencies, particularly relating to health, character and national security requirements. How many places are available in the migration program for parents visa application. Processing time are impacted by cases that are complex, changes to the volume of applications and changes to ministerial directions. Visa processing times guide. Our new visa processing time guide gives you an indication of how long your visa application may take to process. This estimated time frame is based on how long it has taken to process recently finalized application. It does not guarantee your application will be finalized within this time frame. With this visa, you can stay in Australia as permanent resident, sponsor eligible family members to come to Australia. If eligible, apply for Australian citizenship. You must have an eligible child who is a settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident or eligible New Zealand citizen. Be old enough to receive the age pension in Australia. Not have already applied for or hold sponsored parent temporary subclass 870 visa when applying for this visa. you may be eligible for COVID-19 visa concession. If you are getting help with your visa before you pay someone, read information on who can help with your visa application. So you can click on this link and have a look who can be able to help you with this visa. Contributory Aged Parent Temporary Visa Subclass 884. This temporary visa lets the aged parents of a settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident, or eligible New Zealand citizen stay temporarily in Australia. Stay is up to 2 years. Cost is $33,895. With this visa, you can live in Australia for up to 2 years, work and study in Australia. You will not receive government support. Apply for permanent contributory aged parent subclass 864 visa. You must have an eligible child who is settled Australian citizen, an Australian permanent resident, or an eligible New Zealand citizen. Be old enough to receive the Australian aged pension. Be in Australia but not in immigration clearance when you apply for this visa and when we make our decision. Not have already applied for or hold a sponsored parent temporary subclass 870 visa when applying for this visa. The other one is Contributory Aged Parent Subclass 864. This permanent visa lets the aged parents of settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident, or eligible New Zealand citizen stay in Australia. Let's go on to the detail of this visa. Stay permanently, cost $48,365. Processing time is again the same what I have read to you before. With this visa, you can stay in Australia as a permanent resident, work and study in Australia, enroll in Australia's public healthcare schemes. You must have an eligible child who is settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent residence, or eligible New Zealand citizen. Be old enough to receive the age pension in Australia. Not have already applied for an so I've read this to you before. Same information. Contributory Parents Temporary Visa Subclass 173. This temporary visa lets a parents of settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident, or eligible New Zealand citizen stay temporarily in Australia. Let's click on this link to read the details. Stay for up to 2 years. Cost is Australian $32,040. Processing time is again the same information. Live in Australia for up to 2 years. Work and study in Australia. You will not receive government support. Apply for a permanent contributory parents visa 143. All the other information is the same. Contributory Parents Visa Subclass 143. This permanent visa lets a parents of settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident of Australia, or eligible New Zealand citizen move to Australia. Stay permanently, cost $48,365. Processing time is again the same information. I've read it to you before. And with this visa, you can move to or stay in Australia as a permanent resident, sponsor eligible family members to come to Australia, apply for Australian citizenship if eligible, have an eligible child who is settled Australian citizen, permanent resident, or eligible New Zealand citizen unless you are applying for the retirement pathway. Meet the balance of family test unless you are applying for the retirement pathway or hold a subclass 173 visa. Have an assurance of support unless you are applying for the retirement pathway. Not have already applied for or hold sponsored parent temporary subclass 870 visa when applying for this visa. Parent visa subclass 103. This permanent visa lets a parents of settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident, or eligible New Zealand citizen move to Australia. Stay permanently. Cost is $4,990. Processing time, I've read it to you before. And with this visa, you can move to or stay in Australia as a permanent resident, sponsor eligible family members to come to Australia, apply for Australian citizenship if eligible. You must have an eligible child who is settled Australian citizen, Australian permanent resident, or eligible New Zealand citizen. Meet all applicable visa conditions and follow Australian law. Not have already applied for or hold a sponsored parent temporary subclass 870 visa when applying for this visa. There is another visa, sponsored parent temporary visa subclass 870. Stay up to 3 to 5 years. Cost for 3 years is $5,735. For 5 years is Australian $11,000. $470. With this visa, you can visit Australia for 3 or 5 years per visa, can apply for further visas to visit up to maximum period in Australia of 10 years, cannot work in Australia. You must have an approved parent sponsor before you can lodge an application for this visa. Apply online for this visa. Lodge your application within 6 months of the sponsorship approval or 60 days if we give you permission to apply in Australia. Retirement visa pathway. Australian government has created a pathway to permanent residency for eligible retirees. Pathway was announced by government on 8 May 2018 as part of 2018-19 budget and was introduced on 17th November 2018. Pathway provides option to long-term residents who have contributed to and are well established in the community. The government has built the pathway by setting aside a portion of places from the permanent migration scheme for parents. Eligible. You may be eligible to apply for a pathway to permanent resident if on 8th of May 2018 you held resident retirement visa subclass 410, investment retirement subclass 405 visa, or you last substantive visa was retirement visa 410 or investment retirement subclass 405 visa. Pathway options. Eligible retirees may access the pathway by applying for parents visa subclass 103, contributory parents visa subclass 143. You will be subject to most of the existing requirement for a parents visa. However, you will not need to meet the sponsorship balanced family test or assurance of support requirement. If your retirement subclass 410 or investment retirement subclass 5 is about to expire and you lodge a pathway application, we will grant you a bridging visa which will allow you to stay in Australia lawfully while we processing your pathway application. Alright guys, this is it for today. I hope you found this information really helpful. This information will help you apply for your parent immigration or migration visa. Please make sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell for all the latest upcoming videos, and I will see you in my next video. Until then, goodbye.